yesterday, the Teamsters announced that they had come to a deal with UPS, reaching a tentative agreement that will, at the very least, delay the looming strike that was scheduled to begin on August 1st if no agreement was signed. Now, this tentative agreement will be voted on during the first 3 weeks of August. And so the Teamsters for a Democratic Union tweeted out the terms of the agreement. We've changed the game. The Teamsters win a historic UPS contract. Today, the Teamsters reached the most historic tentative agreement for workers in the history of UPS, protecting and rewarding more than 340,000 UPS Teamsters nationwide. The overwhelmingly lucrative contract raises wages for all workers, creates more full-time jobs, and includes dozens of workplace protections and improvements. The UPS Teamsters National Negotiating Committee unanimously endorsed the 5-year tentative agreement. We won't read all of that. I'll just go through some of the points here that they outline. For those of you who are new to the show or who may have forgotten, I worked as an overnight part-time preloader at UPS during the late summer into the holiday season of 2020. So I know kind of what some of the issues here are all about. We did a segment on this a couple weeks back when a strike seemed more likely. Highlights of the tentative 2023 to 2028 UPS Teamsters National Master Agreement include historic wage increases. Existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will get $2.75 more per hour in 2023 and $7.50 more per hour over the length of the contract. That is more than the wage increases were set annually prior. It was about half that prior to this, so that's a good sign. Existing part-timers will be raised up to no less than $21 per hour immediately, and part-time seniority workers earning more under a market rate adjustment would still receive all new general wage increases. So $21 per hour is up from $16.20. So that is more than a 25% pay increase. So that is significant. Not as much as many were asking for, but significant. General wage increases for part-time workers will be double the amount obtained in the previous UPS Teamsters contract. I got to that already. Wage increases for full-timers will keep UPS Teamsters the highest paid delivery drivers in the nation, improving their average top rate to $49 per hour. That's pretty damn good since overtime kicks in after 9 hours, which most of these guys do at least 1 hour of overtime per day at triple that rate. So, you know, at $49 an hour plus 1 or 2 hours a day at $150 an hour. Not too bad there. Current UPS Teamsters working part-time would receive longevity wage increases of up to $150 per hour on top of new hourly raises, compounding their earnings. And the new part-time hires would start at 21 and advance to 23 per hour. And safety and health protections, including vehicle air conditioning and cargo ventilation. UPS will equip in-cab AC in all larger delivery vehicles, Sprinter vans, and package cars purchased after January 1st, 2024. All cars get 2 fans and air induction vents in the cargo compartments. I'm honestly shocked that they didn't have that going in. Because you spend a lot of time in those cargo compartments. I loaded those trucks many a time, and those trucks get really, really packed. So every time you stop that truck, especially at the beginning of the day where you're stepping over things and really pushing things out of the way, you're spending a lot of time in that cargo compartment, which on a 100-degree day, as we've been seeing a lot of 100-degree nows, can get just absolutely brutal. Yeah. The air conditioners in the cabs, I know a lot of UPS drivers, because they make such frequent stops because the routes are so loaded, a lot of them drive with the doors open. So the AC is limited as to what it can do, but every little bit helps on a hot day.
At least you're getting that cold air blowing on your face when you get in and out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean, it counts for something. But once again, given how packed these routes are, it's not like you're getting a fully air conditioned cab. It's just more of, you know, ventilation and a blast of cold air, which can obviously look, every little bit helps on a hot day for sure. Now, we should note that while this does look pretty good on paper, The deal is not inked yet, and many workers had insisted that the minimum wage for part-timers, which are the preloaders overnight, be increased to $25 an hour. And so there are workers prepared to vote no. It does seem unlikely that enough workers will vote no for the deal to fail. But you do have a lot of workers saying that they wanted 25. And, that's one of those things where if you wanted 25, you had to start the negotiation out at 30, 35, because there was going to be some compromise there. And look, I understand why they would want 25, because even though these are part-time workers, the nature of the work, as they've cited, it's brutal manual labor in the dead of night. It's very, very difficult, as they have cited in articles that I've read here, to, balance that with another job and live any semblance of a life, right? I mean, as it is, a lot of these guys will, once you're done in the morning, you'll sleep while the kids are at school, and then you'll wake up, have dinner with the family, which is really your breakfast, and then you'll go to work. It's either that, or you have to be in bed by 7 o'clock the night before to be up at 1 a.m. And go do a shift at the warehouse. So it is the kind of thing where, even though it's part-time work, the nature of it, how grueling it is, they should be able to do this and nothing else. Like, this should be their job. You shouldn't have to get another gig on top of this because of all of that it is. And at 21, it's still tough to swing that. At 25, it would be a lot easier. So yeah, they absolutely should get 25, but 16 was absurdly low. And so bumping that up to 21, don't forget now overtime, which kicks in after 5 hours on the job, because that's how it works. When you preload at UPS, the first 5 hours are at your base rate, and then overtime kicks in every day. So after the first 5 hours of your shift, if you work a 6-hour shift, you'll do 5 at base rate, 1 at time and a half. So now your overtime rate is up over 30. So that's pretty good. So it does make it is a significant pay increase. Like, that's not nothing. They're not talking about $1 or $2 an hour. You're talking about a 25% increase. And, a lot in this deal is to be celebrated. I think the pilots played a huge role in the final days of this by announcing that they would strike with the UPS workers. I think that really scared management to the point where they really felt that, okay, this is no joke. You
can't get scabs to replace pilots.
Right, exactly. How do you make up for that? At that point, it becomes kind of an existential thing. This was also a huge weight off the shoulders of Joe Biden, who was being pressured by the Chamber of Commerce types to intervene on behalf of management, but he was also getting a lot of pressure from the Teamsters. Hey, you better not do to us what you did to the railroad workers. So this really took a pretty tough call off of his back, right? He was definitely very, very relieved that this happened. He gave the quote, "Today's announcement moves us closer to a better deal for workers that will also add to our economic momentum." Yeah, okay. Well, what it definitely does is it spares him the very difficult choice of having to choose labor or management. Shouldn't be a difficult choice, but to a guy like him, it surely was.
Well, victories like this are very important because this is how unions became what they were at one time. We're going to have Thomas Frank on a week from today. And this is something I'm definitely going to want to get into, because in his last book, The People Know, he talks about the 30s and the Depression and the FDR era and how these unions grew. And one of the points he makes is the unions kept growing because they won, because they kept winning. So when you see this union secure these things for these workers, then you want a union, right? That was how it got to the level of power that the unions had at one time in this country. And if you want to rebuild that, you can't keep having shit like the railroad strike, because that just demoralizes people and it makes them feel like, what do I even want a union for? They're not going to do shit for me anyway, and I'm just going to have to pay union dues for what? For what? I mean, that's how I felt. There was a union for the double-decker tour buses, and I felt like, for these wages, I got to pay union dues. I could shit, man. Right. I could have gone in there and smacked around management and got a better deal for myself.
Of course. Well,
What do
same
I
thing
need
with
to
the
go
actors. Same thing with SAG. These guys pay thousands of dollars of union dues to sign up. Now it's up to 12%. When I was, scrounging at the entry levels of that business, I was never eligible to join the union. I never wanted to act professionally, so I never had any interest in joining. But back then it was 9% of SAG members qualified for health insurance, because you have to earn a certain amount to qualify for health insurance through SAG. 9%. Now it's 12. That's pathetic. That's 1 in 8 union members who, even after paying their union dues, earn enough money, which is only, I believe, $28,000 a year, to qualify for health insurance. So what that means, 7 out of 8 actors in the union earn less than $500 a week acting in 2023, when the average price of a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom, I forget what the bedroom is, but the average rent, the median rent in America now, something like $1,740 a month. And you got 87% of the actors union making $500 a month. I mean, you can't live on that. That's why they wait tables.
Yeah. I mean, what's happening with them is unique because it's such an odd industry. It's such a unique industry. It's a little different from companies that print money. Right?
Oh, of course.
Well,
that's the other thing. UPS was in a position to give in here because they're taking in $100 billion a year in revenue now. So if they got a situation where now the pilots aren't going to go in the air, now you're at a situation where, like, okay, out of sheer prudential wisdom at that point, you're like, okay, we have to give a little up, or else we're just going to send everything into a tailspin that we might not be able to dig out of, because they're going to continue to have the upper hand.
Well, I'm just saying the reason, I mean, setting aside everything we've been talking about with AI and everything, I believe the whole business model is broken and dead. The whole Hollywood thing, I think, is over. But the reason it's been so difficult for actors to really press is because they never really had any leverage, and the business is unstable in a way that normal businesses are not. It's like if every time you wanted to make money, you had to launch a new product, right? I mean, Apple doesn't have to do that. They just keep reiterating the iPhone, which is kind of what Hollywood has tried to do with all of these reboots and remakes. That's why they've become so risk adverse and uncreative. But from being in that industry, it's it's very high risk. Most things are not going to be hits. You lose money all the time. They get by on the occasional hit. The occasional hit pays for everything else. So it's a very weird industry that way, in terms of, well, how much can you afford to pay people when most of your product launches are going to fail? You're in this very weird business where your whole business is constant new product launches. You got to try to sell a new product over and over and over again as a production house. Right? And most of them are going to fail. So how much can you afford to pay people for a business where the nature of the business is basically manufacturing failed products and crossing your fingers that one of them is going to hit and pay for everything else?
Right. Exactly.
There's no other business that functions with that premise.
Please clap.